All right, cardiovascular training. Cardio. We've all heard of it. We all have an idea of what it is. And we hear varying levels of pros and cons and benefits of cardiovascular training. Most people in the exercise industry have very positive things to say about cardiovascular training, but depending on the circles you're in, you'll hear different things. What we're going to talk about today are just what are the benefits of cardiovascular training, some of the longevity benefits, some of the benefits as far as our activities of daily living, and then we're going to get into some of the recommendations of how to get going with cardiovascular training and how to get the most benefit out of what you do. So let's go ahead and we'll get into it. So as far as benefits of cardiovascular training, number one is heart health. Cardiovascular, heart and vessels. Your heart needs cardiovascular training. So regular training, what it's going to do is going to do a couple of things. It's going to strengthen that heart muscle. And if you strengthen that heart muscle, you will make it more efficient. And if you make that heart muscle more efficient, as you go through your day, your heart has to work less hard to do the same thing. And so your heart will last longer and longer the more trained that it is. So cardiovascular training is going to improve your heart efficiency and it's going to reduce your risk of heart disease. Next step is cardiovascular endurance. Endurance training or cardio training is going to increase the efficiency of the way your heart utilizes oxygen. And so what that will do is it will improve your stamina. You'll last longer when you're doing activities. You're less likely to get out of breath when you're doing things. You'll just find yourself able to do things for a lot longer period of time when you're doing more cardiovascular training. And then weight management. Cardiovascular training is going to help with your weight because in general, you need to burn more calories than you take in. If you burn more calories than you take in, you will be able to maintain weight if it's the same, or if you have more burning than calories that you take in, you will lose weight. And so cardiovascular training burns calories. That will set the stage for weight loss. Now, we can get into a lot of details and some of the minutiae about how there are lots of different steps to really achieve our weight loss goals, but without the cardio, it's going to be a lot harder. Again, just bumping up those calories that you burn is going to help in that process. It's going to help your heart, it's going to help with endurance, and it's going to help with your weight. Now, let's talk about longevity. It's going to reduce the risk of chronic diseases. And when we talk about chronic diseases, I'm talking about things like heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, those kinds of things. Those diseases are decreased significantly with regular cardiovascular activity. It also will improve our cognitive function. There is so much research today on cardiovascular exercise and the brain. There is a chemical called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It is a chemical that builds the brain. It increases synaptic connections. It's improved with increased cognitive development. It builds your brain, not just when you're a kid. There was a time where we were told that your brain doesn't really improve or change as adults. That is not true. BDNF, that thing that improves our memory, improves our cognition, improves our mood, improves our thinking, increases even when we're seniors, when we're doing cardiovascular activity. It's very important to do as much of that as you can. And just it'll enhance your quality of life. Remember, if you have more stamina, you're able to do things for longer than just the general things that we do over the course of our day. We will last longer. We will enjoy our life that much better. It increases our energy levels. It will improve your sleep. It can reduce stress. Again, all the Prozac and brain-altering chemicals or mood-altering chemicals are actually already in our brain. They just have to be released, and cardiovascular exercise can help to release that. Those are some of the benefits of cardiovascular training. Now let's get into some of the steps that we'll want to take to get started and some different ideas of what to do. Initially, one thing that you'll want to think about is potentially just start with an initial assessment and make sure that it's safe for you, or at least assess your current fitness level. So that's number one. You can do that a bunch of ways. You can do that by tracking how long you can walk briskly. So go on a fast walk, track how long you can do that. Depending on how long that lasts before you have to stop and rest, take note of that. And then when you're going through your daily or regular exercise, over time, you're going to start to notice that spot that you got tired before, you're not tired there anymore. You can last longer. And that's the goal here over time. So then we set realistic goals. So you figure out where you're at, and then you set goals as far as how you want to move forward. Set goals that are achievable. So for someone that's just starting, maybe that goal is just walking 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. Actually, that sounds like a lot, but yeah, start there. For more advanced individuals, maybe it's improving your 5K time or competing in a triathlon or something like that. There's a lot of different things that you can do as you're setting your goals. Let's make sure your goals are SMART. And many of you have heard of SMART goals, but SMART is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Specific means don't just say I want to get healthier or I want to do more cardio. Let's say I want to run 3 times a week, let's say. That's more specific. Measurable. How long do you want to be able to do that? I want to run 3 times a week for 30 minutes, let's say. You want to be very measurable so that you can actually see, am I achieving this goal? Maybe I'm finding that I'm running longer than that, or I'm finding I'm not running as long. You can measure it so you can see if you're progressing. Achievable. Make sure it's something you can actually do. If you've not exercised in 10 years, don't make a goal for yourself to run a marathon in a month. You're setting yourself up for disappointment, failure, and possibly injury if you actually try to get to that goal. So make sure your goal is specific, that it's measurable, that it's achievable. Let's make sure that it's relevant, that it's something that actually even matters, that means something. Think about why you want to begin or really start to hone your exercise. Think about why and really understand that why, and make sure that when you're setting goals, that those goals are going to get you to your why. Make sure they're relevant to you. And then time bound. Give yourself a time limit or a period of time that you're looking at. So for the next month, I'm going to be doing running 3 times a week for 30 minutes out of the day. Give yourself a time to be able to see if you're achieving those goals. So there you go. Those are SMART goals, and set those goals and then begin. So now let's talk about some different activities that you can do. Moderate activities or moderate intensity activities, some of them could be things like brisk walking. That's really good because just about anyone can do it. And you're much less likely to hurt yourself, and it actually does make a difference in your blood sugar, makes a difference in your endurance, and it reduces the incidence and risk of chronic diseases. Cycling is something that's really good. It's very low impact, and it's good for building leg strength. You can do it outdoors. You can do it inside on a stationary bike. Swimming's a full body workout. It is excellent because it's very low impact, and it works your entire body, including your core. Now, with cardiovascular exercise, the goal, your aim is going to be 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity to get to 150 minutes. That is 5 days out of the week where we do 30 minutes of activity. If you're able to do that is 100 minutes. Or you can do 10-minute bursts of activity throughout the day. Let's imagine I don't have 30 minutes in the day, but you know what? 3-4 times a day I have 10 minutes. Those 10-minute blocks that you have, go out, do an activity, get those 10 minutes in. The studies have shown that you don't have to have all of this stuck in one period of time. You can do it for multiple blocks of 10 minutes and still achieve very similar benefits as if we were doing 30 minutes at a time. Now, let's talk about a very powerful form of exercise, that can have a huge impact on your endurance, a huge impact on body composition and weight, a big impact on your health. It works really quickly as far as making changes in your body, but you have to be really careful with this particular kind of exercise because it is a much higher intensity. It's actually in the name, high intensity interval training. It involves very short bursts of very intense exercise, followed by periods of rest or periods of lower intensity exercise. This method is good for improving heart health, it increases calorie burn, and it saves time because you can actually do less time doing high intensity interval training than slow, steady state cardiovascular activity. Now, Here's some keys when it comes to this type of activity. You want to start with one session a week, one high intensity interval session a week, and then you'll gradually increase to two. And honestly, you don't want to do more than two high intensity interval sessions in the course of your week. You need at least a day of rest. I'd say take 2 days of rest in between high intensity trainings, and you can go 15 to 30 minutes with this. And I'm going to explain to you what I do when I use high intensity interval training. And I don't necessarily think that this is something that you should do or that everyone should do, but it's just a way that I incorporate it. I like to run. I'm a runner. And so when I'm out running, one of the things that I do is I'll spend a lot of time in what we call zone 2, which is really slow, steady state activity. But I have a little interval that's about 30 minutes where what I'll do is I'll have a short 15-minute burst. And I mean that 15-second burst. That 15-second burst is a sprint. I am running as hard as I can. And then 45 seconds of rest. And then we do it again, 15-minute sprint, and then 45 seconds of rest. Now that resting is walking. I'm not just stopping. I'm walking. And then I burst again for that 15 seconds. Repeat that 8 times. And then I'll go for 30 seconds of sprint as hard as I can. And then I'll have about a minute and a half of rest in between. And I'll repeat that about 4 times. And so getting that high intensity interval in there is something that just improves the cardiovascular training a little bit faster, which is really good. And it's actually a lot of fun doing something like that than doing the slower steady state activity. The thing about high intensity interval training, though, is that the risk of injury is a lot higher. And so you want to make sure that you're really careful. Actually, the safest way to do high intensity interval training would be something like an elliptical trainer, where you're not really getting any pounding. You can do a full body activity and not have any problems. You can also do it on the bike, and that can work too really safely. So those are some examples. Some typical examples would be that circuit that I mentioned before that I do, or there's what's called a Tabata. That's a very common interval. 20 seconds of high intensity followed by 10 seconds of low intensity, or 10 seconds of complete rest, actually. So 20 seconds of high intensity, 10 seconds of total rest, and you repeat that, but only for 4 minutes. So you do that for 4 minutes. And you can do that with all kinds of exercise, and that helps. The key with any kind of cardiovascular exercise, the key with any kind of cardio is over time, you want to progress. So you want to increase your intensity. So either run a little bit faster, run a little bit farther, something like that, so that you're continually getting better. And then having variety. You want to make sure to change up your workouts a bit, because as you change up your workouts, you work different muscle groups and you'll see better benefits that way. Now, another key when it comes to cardiovascular exercise is be safe. It's also listen to your body. So as far as in the safety category, make sure that you have warm-ups and cool-downs. Always start with a 5 to 10 minute warm-up to prepare your body for the exercise. So if you're going for a run, maybe the first 5 or so minutes are walking, or the first 5 or 10 minutes are a very slow jog, zone 1 or zone 2. We haven't really talked about the zones. I probably should talk about those zones so that we're aware. So definitely have a warm-up, and when you're done with the activity, definitely have a cool down. Number 2, make sure that you stay really hydrated. Stay hydrated before, during, and after your workouts, especially in hot weather. We're here in the desert. Right now, we're recording this in the winter time. It's not really too hot, but it's going to get there soon enough. Make sure that you're staying good and hydrated. And then pay attention to your body's signals. If you feel pain beyond that normal muscle fatigue, listen to that. Take a break. Stop altogether if you need to. Give yourself an additional rest day. There is nothing wrong with having more recovery. Make sure that you have adequate recovery between your exercise sessions, especially between your intense sessions. Never have one day of intense session after another unless you want to get injured. We talked about a lot of things today. We're talking about cardiovascular training, the importance of it, our heart health, our cardiovascular endurance, our weight management. We talked about some of the longevity benefits, that we're going to reduce disease, that we're going to improve our cognitive function, we're going to enhance our quality of life. We talked about starting with an initial assessment, setting some goals in order to set a starting point, a baseline for our activity. And then we talked about some moderate activities like brisk walking, cycling, and swimming, or things like high intensity interval training. That there are a couple of different ways to do that, but we also make sure we have lots of time in between high intensity interval sessions. We talked about progression and variation, making sure that we're gradually getting better, but also changing up our activity so we work different muscles. And then we talked about being safe, warming up and cooling down, making sure we're staying hydrated, and really listening to our body. Do these things, and incorporating cardiovascular activity into your day is going to have a huge impact on your health. All right, we're going to stop there for this particular video. I'm Dr. Emil Tompkins. I hope you have a fantastic day. Oh, and how about this? Our next video, we're going to talk about flexibility and mobility work. All right, we'll see you soon.